Hey everyone, we hope you're doing well on this day.
I don't even know what day it is anymore. Wednesday, thank
It is
goodness.
Wednesday. Okay. This is technically Youth Week, and so Wednesday was going to be a pizza party.
Oh,
Yeah. We're also running from a new microphone, new and improved, but we I haven't figured out all the details of the mic yet. So if you can't hear us great or something, put a comment in, and we're going to keep tweaking it. It's a much better mic and newer, but that way when I get loud and say "Hey," it works out. And I did that in like a whisper because our boys are sleeping and we don't want to wake them up. That would be bad. So anyway, today is chapter 18 of Matthew, and if you haven't been following with us, we've been doing a chapter a day through Lent of Matthew, and it's called the Abide in Me Challenge. And we've been excited and just happy with what has come out of that for each of us, and hopefully for some of you all as well. We are diving into 18, and I always say, Gretchen, what you got? So let's not change
ladies
it for
first,
tonight, right?
always.
Yeah.
For me, it was just when Jesus is talking to Peter and he's asking how many times do we need to forgive someone, and he says 7 times. Like that sounds like a good amount of how we would need to forgive people, and he
Right.
says. In some translations, it says 77 times. Other translations, it says 70 times 7, which is like almost 500.
Do you have your tally sheet?
No, I'm not keeping a tally.
Okay.
But I think what just struck me is in this moment, in this sort of phase of our lives of being in the house, of high stress, high anxiety, how we need to just give each other grace. And whether that is, like for me, a work colleague being snappy, like that's not how they normally are. I know it has nothing to do with me or the thing that's going on with work. It's about stress and grief. I think same with our kids or with each other. And I think for you with your family or your siblings, just giving each other grace and forgiveness, and not just 7 times, not saying like, I forgive you 6 times today, so then you have one more chance.
And then you're maxed out.
Right? Yeah, but that either 77 times or 70 times 7 times, I think just to say we keep forgiving, we keep offering grace, to me that just really struck home today.
Yeah, and you know what it reminded me of is this this a few hours ago when our neighbor asked for help to come into their house, and I really felt like I just couldn't do that with what was going on after we talked about it, and I hated saying no.
Yeah.
Like I really hated not being able to help, and was hopeful that grace was provided to me in the midst of that, which I believe it was after I talked to them. So yeah, some good things right there. You know what came out for me, and I'm trying to find my place of it because I read it on my phone and then pull up the iPad and highlight in my phone. I should just start with the iPad. And what happens is in 18 verse 2, Jesus says to his disciples, unless you change. And then he goes on to say, and becomes like these little children, and uses instances of humility and of all sorts of other things to be like these little children. But those 3 words, unless you change, really sat with me about everything. Is that, Jesus talks about so many things in chapter 18 and flips them on their head. Like, how often should you forgive? Well, all the time. And how should you show mercy? Well, I'm gonna give you a parable about a slave and a master, and the slave didn't give then his fellow slave mercy after he was given mercy. Like all these instances of having to do differently than what is done around us, and Jesus just basically saying, unless you change and become like this, like you're not part of me.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it's not just our words. Like something inside you has to change. You can't just give lip service to being a Christian. You can't just give lip service to saying you're going to offer grace or forgiveness or have, be humble. Like you have to do it. Your actions have to change.
Yeah, and the piece that really sat with me after that, like, unless you change, is for those who welcome me. Like, welcoming me. Like, who are we welcoming?
Mm-hmm.
And welcome maybe looks a little different right now with everything keeping 6 foot distance and those type things. But how can we welcome others in the midst of not being physically with people? But welcoming like a child. You think about a child and how open they are and accepting they are, and just willing to just provide the grace and the understanding in this. And part of it's them being naive, but part of it is something that Jesus says we need to learn from and not ignore.
Yeah, I think about our kids when this sort of relates to both of our things that stood out today. Today our little boys were having an argument, and the one said, like, I'm really sorry, and the other one said, I forgive you, and then it was over. Like, I just think, like, what if we did that with people that we were having a disagreement with, to say I'm sorry, to say you're forgiven, and then to move on. And it was like it never happened.
Hold on. So like, no gossiping about it, or no bringing it back up
No.
like 3 weeks later?
No, none of that.
None of that. Huh.
I think it's really hard for adults. I think we like to keep score. I think we like to sort of keep that record. But that's not what Jesus tells us to do.
And it basically he's saying is, like, what you maybe like want to default to, because everyone around us in our world likes to default to these things. Flip the default. So it's kind of like when I'm driving somewhere and I'm like, hey, I think we should go left. We always go the opposite of what I do because my directions are so bad. But flipping it on its head, that's what Jesus did. And that's what Jesus continues to ask us to do. And so that's kind of what we were finding in this, is that, he does things crazy, like leaves 99 sheep to go after one.
Yep.
And other crazy things like that. But they're so important for us to grow in and to learn from. So unless you change, I think is a really big thing. So, guys, we are going to hop off, and tomorrow is 19.
Yeah.
So we're excited. Glad that you all joined us. We're going to try to get on a little early like this once kids get to bed as best we can. But love that you guys chimed in, and feel free to comment about what you got out of chapter, what is this, 18?
Yeah, Matthew
we'll keep
18.
it together. And we're going to post this on our IGTV, but we're also going to post it on our YouTube channel, Ardmore Baptist Youth. So tune in to each one of those, and you can find all the other episodes. Well, it's so long, and see you later until tomorrow.
Have a good
all
night.
Right. Thanks, guys. See ya.